Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guest. I gotta tell you, people, this gentleman was on my show back in May of 2016, and the great show he was on, Homicide: Life on the Street, was just released on Peacock. And I gotta tell you, people, if you're not familiar with this show, I posted about it on Facebook, and here's just some of the comments. One, I've searched for this. Thank you so much. Two, thanks for the info. We loved that show, but it was before DVRs, and it was old. It was late, from 10 to 11, and we'd fall asleep. It was a very older couple. Great show, one of my all-time favorites. Best cop show ever on network television. And my guest is the man who played Mr. Tim Bayliss. It's Kyle Secor. How you doing, Kyle?
I'm good, Steve. How are you doing?
Good. I got to ask you, how excited for you was it? Because it's been in limbo forever. So tell me what happened, why it was in limbo, and how it finally came to us.
Right. Well, a couple of things. It was in limbo initially, I think, because of the music licensing rights. That was what everyone heard about. And so we can go down that line. And yeah, they're really expensive. Back in the day when they did rights, they didn't imagine that there'd be something called streaming. They knew about DVDs and all of that stuff, but streaming was wasn't thought about. And so there were rights that did not transfer. So that was one of the things in the music rights because we used a lot of great music. So they had to nail down those rights. And also, last year we lost Richard and Andre, and we lost 3 other cast members in a couple of years just before that, with Yaphet and John and Ned Beatty. So I think there was a certain aspect of NBC going, how are we going to do this? Can we make money off of this? And also to put into context the legacy that those guys had left. And get some people interested in a new way in this show.
Well, you know what I really noticed, and I watched it on and off when it was out because I did comedy back then. And I'd be on the road, and you didn't really tape stuff. But as soon as it started streaming, I started watching it, and I've watched it much. And I'm going to take it. I'm not going to binge it. I'm not going to binge crazy. I'm going to take it slowly. But
don't do that.
I know, but you get crazy. Then I'm sitting. I find myself in the room for my wife's like, "What are you doing? You're still watching that show? It's been a few hours." But what I noticed is, and this is in the first season, and what I really appreciate about the cast and the writing is, we forget it was before cell phones, and you don't even notice that. Like when you guys are all talking, in the squad room and everything, and you're out, no one notices that there's no cell phones, and I think that's great because now everything is so concentrated on cell phones that it's just
right.
You don't even notice them, because you guys are always talking. Polito's talking about Lincoln, and you're in the beginning. You're obsessing about this case, and it's great because it really it's a testament to your all of your acting and the writing.
Yeah, I think that's a great point about the cell phones. I think that because we had such great writers, they're able to fill in all of those blanks that when the people when they go, oh, I don't have anything more to talk about, let me get on my cell phone. Or, hey, we need some evidence, we need some more clues, we need to do this, that, and the other, we need to Google this information. That's not there anymore. So they're forced to speak to the other person in the car with them. They're forced to speak to people on, they have to go down to the evidence room instead of calling or doing a Zoom with the evidence room or whatever you would do. So we're forced into that. And the writing was good enough that no one knew that there were about cell phones anyway back then, really. I mean, there were, but it doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't bother me that someone doesn't pull out a phone and start talking to someone. It's so good. Another thing that doesn't bother me, that didn't bother me at the beginning, but I thought was so wild, was the camera work. Now I've become it's everywhere now. That type of camera work is everywhere. And so now it just looks like a regular TV show, but really good TV show.
Yeah, no, I want to ask you, I want to get more into your whole career and more into the show, but you directed, I believe you directed 3 episodes, right?
I did, yeah.
So now tell me how that came about. And the one is like D-I-N. Is that a spin on Diner, the movie Diner?
Diener. Diener. A Diener is, oh gosh, boy, you've really now. It's a medical term. That's all I know. How about that? I've forgotten what it is, and I actually just read about it again about 2 months ago, and now it's slipped my mind yet again. But Diner, that's a good play on words.
Because I know, Barry Levinson directed Diner. It took place in Baltimore, so I thought, and I know he directed the first episode. Which, before we talk about your directing, what was it like working with Barry Levinson? Because he's a killer director. Was one of my favorite directors.
Sure. Well, working with him, he just let us go. And if something, he would get the sense of something in a scene, and sometimes he would just follow that, even if if the dialogue didn't support that. He would throw dialogue out. He would, especially with some of the, in that first episode, we had some incredible guest actors that came on. He would, from my understanding, is he'd put the dialogue away and take maybe one snippet of dialogue and say, just say this over and over and over and over again. And he would get to the core of that scene with the actors, which was, amazing. He did that with the guy that Kay had in the box, and then the guy who was tweaking, and then he had the guy who said I was drinking too much. He just had him do that over and over and over again, and Barry was just very intuitive. So he would get to the core of the scene and he would just move. He was like a dog with, he just moved to the core of the scene. That's what I remember about him.
So now, how did you parlay into directing 3 episodes? Because I'm sure, that happens to a lot of actors who are on a show for a while. I don't know if it's in their contract. Did you ask? How do you do that? And then what's it like directing castmates that you work with? You know them. So it's not like some director coming in. It's like, oh, shut up, Kyle. No, because how did you get those to direct? And then what was it like working with your fellow actors?
Right. So it was season 5, and it was very clear to me. I went through 4 seasons. Season 5, the first click of that is I got sober. So I had a clear-eyed view on what was going on for the first time. Now, then we had a couple of directors that people didn't appreciate too much. And so our set was a little bit down. And I went, I think I could do better. I can at least throw a better party. I can lift up the spirits of the people around me, and I can include other people in their suggestions, even down to from the prop people or the people that were doing catering. And so I asked Tom Fontana, and he miraculously didn't take more than a couple of seconds, and he said, okay. And he said, and then he said, and I have the episode for you because we have an opening. I went, oh, this is a real thing. And then, then I had to direct my fellow actors. And most of them were very cool about it all. And they gave me a little bit of a hard time and stuff. But the guy that really got on me was Andre. Andre just tested me from the get-go. And his way of going about it was, let's see what you're going to do. And also, I don't need your direction. So what are you going to do about that? And I go, okay. It was really, he was a lot of fun, that episode. And his wife was on that episode as well. But in general, since I knew all of the actors, I knew for the most part what they responded to from directors. And I knew that Yaphet wanted to have a take that was just his view on the take. He didn't want any input. He wanted his entire view. And I went, great. I just have to give him that one take and he'll be happy. And that's exactly what happened. Well, no, so that was a great thing about knowing your actors and working with them for a long time.
Were you nervous at all, though, like to direct? Because it's a network TV show. It's something that I don't think you really had any directing experience before that. So all of a sudden, it's not like you're saying, "Oh, I'm going to direct a play in North Hollywood." It's like it's like now you're going, "Oh yeah, I'm on a critically acclaimed, award-winning TV show." What is your mindset when you step behind the camera?
I was just dumb enough not to think about that stuff at all. As my light shoots down into my eyes, I was just dumb enough not to think about that stuff at all, and to really, what is going on? Oh, it just kind of broke on its own. Whatever, doesn't matter. Wow. Hold on there, Steve. There we go. Turning it off. Yeah, I was just kind of dumb enough not to, do this stuff on my own. And good Lord, I have a complete malfunction going on here, Steve.
It's all right.
And so I remember putting in a book that was my director's book, and basically the book said, "Listen to everyone. You don't know a thing; they know a lot. Just listen to them." So I didn't think about it being on a network show or anything like that. I had producers that were on my butt about making the day. They said, "No matter what you do, make the day. You only have this amount of time. Make the day." So that was my initial stressor, was making the day, and I knew how important it was to our show, budget-wise and things like that. And that first day, I didn't make the day. and so I had blown the template, and that was a good thing, because every day after that, I made the day.
Now, what was your path? I know you were acting. I know you were in St. Elsewhere, and you were in Santa Barbara. And
Right.
my mom used to watch that, actually. I remember when
Oh,
And
Mom.
what was your path to the role? I want to talk about how you got in acting, but I want to know your path to the role in Homicide, because you look at it. The first episode,
Right.
first season, there was 9 episodes. Then there was 4 episodes. That's not even like right now. That's like a mini series on Netflix.
Right.
But what was your role to getting the role of Bayliss? And did you know you were going to be one of the leads? I mean, everyone's like a lead in that show.
Right. No. So my path to getting there was Tom Fontana. It was all Tom Fontana. I had done St. Elsewhere. I did the last season of St. Elsewhere. I did about 10 episodes, I think. And I'm not sure how many years. This was 3 or 4 years after that. And he thought of me for this role of Bayliss. And he brought me in for it. And I didn't, my story is, I never wanted to do TV again. I thought I was on a movie, a film career path, which isn't something that anyone says right now. They easily move back and forth between TV, film, stage, all that. But at that point, I was on a film thing.
Why? Real quick, why did you feel you wanted to just go on the film path?
I had been doing some films and working with people that I really enjoyed. I had done City Slickers with Billy Crystal and those guys, and I'd done The Doctor with William Hurt, and I had done a couple of other films, one with Julia Roberts, and I thought, oh, this seems right. I like the way that this feels when I'm on a film set. I like that it has a beginning and an ending, and I like that closeness. And then you're on to something else, and I really enjoyed that. But then this came along, and then Tom, stuck out the carrot with, we're going to do this episode where there's just going to be 3 of you in a box in the interrogation room. And I went, what, huh? Oh, okay, I'll do this just for that. And so that was my path to get there. I had no idea what my role was in any kind of a hierarchy. I just thought we're an ensemble, and we work that stuff out as we go along. I didn't know anything about being a regular on TV. So, and that's what happened. And Audra and I, hooked up in that first year, and we were off to the races.
Was he as intense off camera? Because it's so funny. I was watching was it one of the first or second? He's with Daniel Baldwin. He doesn't want to take you, and he's checking every car for the key. And you're sitting there, and my wife has OCD, but she's not that bad. Like she wouldn't. But did he really get into character? Because his character is so intense. Like last night, him and Baldwin going back and forth about racism in this street, why I call it this street, stuff like that. What was it like working with him? Did he stay in character the whole time? Or, I mean, as an actor, that must really make you shine because you guys are both just hitting it.
Yeah, he could be very intense about things off camera, like playing chess, playing board games, his potato chips. He could be very intense about really interesting things, and he was like, could be really focused on it, and like he would get a grip on something and wouldn't let it go. But I wouldn't say he stayed in character. He was one of those actors that has that ability, that wonderful ability to be doing something here, messing around right before the camera rolls, and then he's on it. That may not be how he would have termed that. Maybe he would say, oh no, I'm always my mind's always on the character, but not always in character. But when the camera goes on, then it just focuses in. That might be it. But he was could be, incredibly intense about certain things, but nothing that was, raised to that Pembleton level. That was pretty good.
Now, how about you on set? Because, in the first season, you come in, you're hungry. I love it. You're so hungry, and they look at you like he worked for the mayor or whatever, the security.
Right.
They just think there's some putts. They don't like, what's this guy know? But your character, is very, you can tell you're very consumed. By so did you take that offset? I mean, how did you balance it? Because I know actors have an on and off switch, and I know that. But with a character that yours, it's very complex. How would you get ready every day when they said action? I mean, would you just be chilling and go, okay, time to go, putting the daily news down and getting on set?
No, I'm a bit of the opposite from Andre, in that I kind of feel the need to be more in it. At that time, I did be more in character through WoW. Not that I would always be, but in a lead up to a scene, especially if it was incredibly emotional, I generally would be by myself and working my way into what needed to happen when the camera rolled. So that was my particular process. And I had people, especially that first year, I had a guy by the name of Tom Pellegrini, who was the cop that I was based on in the book, and he would show up on the set, and I got to observe him and talk with him about his process of the Adina Watson case, which was Latoya, what was her last name? Anyway, he had a similar case in the book that it was based on, and so for me, it was just taking on research, taking on stuff, and then it would get its way into my system, and then the cameras would be on, and I would be in it.
Now, as an actor, do you like the fact that you can bring on research, or do you like the fact that you can totally create the role on your own in different parts in your career? I mean, as an actor, which do you prefer, or do you love them both because they're so different? I mean, I'm sure if Bayliss was not based on anyone, you would come at it differently. You wouldn't even know this guy. You wouldn't even see how he interacts.
Right.
You might not even smoke. Were you a smoker in real life?
At that point, I was.
Yeah,
not much, but I was.
I've been saying I quit 12
but
years ago.
But I was a bad smoker. If you look at me, I'm a bad.
I know. That's funny. Yeah. Are they real cigarettes, or are they the herbal ones they use?
No, they're real cigarettes. Almost everyone in the cast smoked at that point, except for I think Clark Johnson, and Yaphet.
Oh, wow, that's fun. That would never happen now. Forget it.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, it was such a big part of that set. And then, a couple of years later, then Andre had stopped, and then I did, and then, so it all kind of went up and down. So,
what do you do? I mean, as an actor, do you prefer creating your own, or do you prefer to get that nugget? Because you have a nugget that you can build from.
Sure. Yeah. Well, with Bayliss, I had the book to go on, but at a certain point, you're just taking it on yourself. They're bringing in elements that weren't a part of that real character. So it's just like all of the stuff with the sexual abuse in his family, and the bisexuality, and all of that stuff was just stuff that Tom Fontana and I came up with in the off season. And so I had time to look at that stuff and to kind of shake out all of the ways we could go about doing that. And Tom was just incredible with collaborating in that way. He did that with everyone. But I'm a big researcher. I love doing research. But again, once the cameras are on, the research is basically, you don't act the research. It's just sort of in you, and then you're going on a moment-to-moment thing of what's happening with you and the other actor or the circumstances.
Now, this, as I said, we're going back 30 years.
Yes.
How was the show? It was critically acclaimed, but how was it viewer-wise? Because back then there wasn't 87,000 different channels. There was HBO.
Yeah.
It was I don't know. FX was coming up, I think, then. But how was it officially? Because why did you only get 9 episodes the first season?
That's a great question, and I'm not quite sure. I think they were trying it out. I think that we actually. I don't think NBC kind of bought that show, a show without gunfights and car chases, was going to. They were testing the waters with it. Hence 4 episodes the next season. That was the biggest, like, show us what you got in 4 episodes. And then when they brought on Robin Williams, bam, that took us over the top. So it was great writing, it was combined with bringing on someone like Robin Williams.
But what's the morale like on the set when you know you only have 4 episodes? It's not like, it's like Law and Order SVU. It's been on forever. So when you go on that set, everyone's happy because the cameramen, they got their pension. Everyone's been working that show forever. They know until Mariska Hargitay says, no, I don't want to do it. It's going to go, just like NCIS. What is it like when you're the morale of the cast and the crew when you have 4 episodes? And basically, it's a trial, even though you already had 9, and the critics loved it.
Yeah. Well, at our best, Homicide was a stressful set no matter what. We had a lot of different big personalities on the show and a lot of stuff going on with a lot of people. So it was a stressful set. Some people were very concerned about that. Other people, like myself, I was just showing up and, to work each day and doing the best work that I could do. Now, in the off season, when they're going, well, we don't know if we're going to be picked up, then that's for me when I'm going, oh my gosh, do we have another season coming up? What's going on? But I didn't really stress about that while we were shooting. That was all that I left that to the off season. Other people, it really got to them, and it really it affected them. It affected, a couple of the other actors I know that were really unhappy with the way that NBC was handling everything. But to me, it didn't affect me at all in that way.
Well, then what was it like when you got that first full season? Because you're an actor.
Oh, yeah.
I'm guessing you probably had some pilots before that earlier in your career. Everyone seems to go through pilot season. They don't get picked up. You've been on St. Elsewhere for 10 episodes, right. Santa Barbara for a bunch, but that was daytime. So what was it like when you're like, holy shit, I got like 22 episodes? I mean, as an actor, that must be amazing because your character has so many possibilities.
Yeah. No, that first, that first big pickup was huge for us. It really felt like we were given a big pat on the back and, hey, go for it. Now you can really go for it. And so everyone, when they showed up, were, primed. Like we had a bunch of thoroughbreds on that show that were just going, give us the stuff. We got this. And we ran with it. And I'm not sure if it was that year, that first 22 pickup, or it was the second year that we got 2 seasons in a row. And that was big, because then you're handled for the next couple of years. That's no actors really. I don't know if you get that anymore. No one shoots 22 episodes anymore of anything. I don't think. But at that point, to be picked up for 2 seasons was huge, and that gave you a sense of security, certainly. But also at that point, I was living on such low, I didn't spend money or anything. So to me, if we only went for the 4 and the 6 or the 9 and the 4, I was good. If we went 22, I was good. But then it started to get a little bit more interesting. Well,
no, I was going to say, because it's funny, a lot of people don't understand that, actors, and you're a character actor, I talk to a lot of character actors, they have, I do a lot of networking with business people too, and I go, you guys, you don't even know what rejection is. I said, talk to some of these actors I talk to. I said, these guys, they can win awards. A friend of mine wrote on a TV show, and they said Max Van Sydow was doing an audition. He's like, he's won an Oscar. That's how it is. But for you, in the psyche, when you find out that you have those 2 seasons, how do you honestly, is it just a relief? As you said, you have 3 years, but because if it wasn't for that, you'd have to be out on the grind again. You'd have to go out, audition. Yeah. So what is that like when you get that? Is it just something that you can you sit back and enjoy it? Because I know most artists, I'm one of them, we dwell. We all dwell in the darkness. But how did that affect you with your craft, because you know you're in for
Right.
2 years, and you're thinking,
Right.
and some people I'm sure would be like, I can just, I don't have to show up. They're not going to get rid of me. I don't have to show up
Right.
every day. But how does that keep you focused as an actor?
Yeah. I mean, I have a contract to show up every day and to work to the best of my ability, which is what I did. I mean, and before that, leading up to all of that, I was in acting classes all the time. I mean, I was constantly going to classes. I was constantly working and doing small plays in LA. I was constantly doing whatever I could to be the best I could be. And then to get something like that, and then to start getting offered roles, like on the hiatus, like you're getting offered these roles, that was a completely different thing. And then here's this money that comes with that role, and you're going, wait, I didn't audition for it? That's incredible. So that was really amazing. And being able to use that, our status in Baltimore to help out in the community and to raise money for different, projects and for different organizations was an amazing thing. And, also for me, it was a flip side, because it was really good, but then also all the money and that minuscule attention that was given to you really wasn't the best thing. I didn't take it in the best way, and I was drinking at the time and I'm doing all of that, so it was, sometimes it was not such a great thing, but that was the path.
Now, were you celebrities in Baltimore? Because me and my wife just went to Baltimore for years ago, and we went outside the Inner Harbor because we didn't want to go to the Inner Harbor. No, we don't have kids, we don't want to go to the aquarium. We found, I think it was it's called Port Jefferson or Port Washington, and we found this hotel that was so cool. It was new, and I actually found it on Groupon. And it was, but in my room, they had paintings of the characters from the Royal Tannenbaums. And I said, this is cool. Like, it was about Baltimore's hip, but it can be shady. Like, what was it? Where were you guys staying and where were you shooting? Because Baltimore's a tough city.
Yeah. No, we shot down in Fells Point. We had taken over this very, very large building down there that had been a ballroom initially, and then it became like a police gymnasium type of situation. It was huge, and it's still there, and it's now a luxury hotel, which I just love that it's become that. And that's where we shot, was right down in Fells Point. And we, initially we were completely exposed to the public. We had no security. We had nothing. We would show up on these streets to shoot, and we had maybe one guy that was walking around in a black jacket, and that was our security. And we shot in some pretty sketchy neighborhoods because that was the show. And but we became kind of Baltimore's own show. We were the first show, I believe, that shot there, and we were sort of beloved, and we became, kind of in a way that, aside from the Orioles or, we were kind of the face of Baltimore. The Ravens came in.
Did you like the crabs?
Oh, I did I like crab cakes.
Okay.
I wasn't a big fan of crabs. I didn't like the cracking things open stuff, but I love crab cakes. So
how do you find out that the show is going off the air? You've been on it. You've been in, it's 93 to 99, and you did get some full seasons, as you said. So you got the money, so you're like, okay, and you're probably sitting there going, I want some residuals. Let's get on network eventually. The residual stuff. But was it a shot? Was it out of nowhere that you guys went off, or what happened? What was the whole process of Homicide ending?
Sure. As I recall, we came to the end of the 6th season, and I was pretty certain I was going to. I was done. I was ready to kind of move on, and I know Andre was ready to move on, and then through some conversations with the producers, I went, okay, I'll stick out this next season, which will be interesting without Andre and a couple of the other people, and so. We did that, and it was somewhere within that season. It became clear that this show in this iteration wouldn't be coming back. I don't know if we'd gotten the word of that. I believe Tom and they had made an attempt to do an 8th season, but I don't think that was really in the cards. So I felt like that last season we were all saying goodbye. So in my mind, this was it. And Tom wrapped it up in a way where it could be construed as that, yeah, this is it for the show. And then finally they brought, they did a TV movie, and we did that, which was really, really a great way to come back and to see everyone and wrap it up.
So you said you're ready to move on, but once again, you're coming from security, and once again, actors. So you're coming from the security, and you're coming from a TV show that has great writing, great direction, great cast.
Yeah.
And now, unfortunately, you're actors. You need work. You might end up rolling into a project that it's like the writing's not the same because you're not going to find that level of writing. Was it weird for you to start doing projects after that? And were you, in the beginning, getting offers, or then did you have to start auditioning? Well, how was your transitioning to other roles after that show?
When I left Homicide, there was an idea that I wouldn't act again. I didn't want to act.
Why didn't you want to act?
I was a little bit. I was burnt out from being on the show for so long and doing Bayliss for so long. As much as I loved it, I was kind of burned out, and I was intrigued by directing. I was intrigued by that. Then I started getting offers to do some roles, like I did Party of Five, and some others that were just, I didn't have to audition for them, and so that was coming in. But I was never, again, I never thought about, this could end at some point, or anything like that, because there was just money that was coming in, all the time. And so I didn't think about career. I wasn't crafting a career or anything. I was just sort of looking at what was coming up. And so that's how I approached it. I mean, I know Clark Johnson went off and immediately started directing some episodes of The Wire, and and things like that. And but I was just didn't quite know what I wanted to do when I left the show. Yeah.
Well, tell me about the show Philly, because I live 10 minutes from Philly.
Yeah, Philly was one of those shows that was a couple years after Homicide, I believe. And yeah, it was. I went in and I did one audition, and I thought I was really horrible, and they gave the role to me, and it was the second time that I'd worked for that group of people, Stephen Bochco, and I had a great time on that. I had a great time on that. It ended much sooner than I thought it would, but it wasn't something that for me I was more concerned about the other cast members and the crew. So I never thought I would be on something and it would last another 10 years or something. And I don't think I really was ready for that at the time.
Well, now because of Homicide, you have the Substack. You have Everything Nothing with Kyle Secor. Tell me about that, because I'm not really. I've seen people mention Substack. I'm not really familiar with it. Explain exactly what is Substack and what you have a bunch of stuff. It's all about Homicide, right?
I would say 90% of it is about Homicide, and others just me musing about some things that are adjacent to Homicide and me talking about some things like that. But how it happened is that I'd heard about Substack about a year or so ago, and I remember I got on it and went, well, what am I going to write about? I didn't have anything that was pushing me. Then Richard passed away, and then Andre passed away, and I started thinking about Homicide and realizing I didn't remember jack shit. I remembered nothing. I had a couple of stories that I've been telling through the years, but I didn't remember anything about the people or anything like that. And so I went, that's what I'll do. I'll just start writing, and I'll see what I can remember through writing. So that's what I started doing. And then I started doing some interviews, which were fun, and it all kept jogging more memories. And I didn't want it to be just, hey, here's this actor who was on this show. I wanted to improve my writing, and I wanted it to be a little more literary than just kind of me reporting about stuff. And then Reed Diamond came on, and I did an interview with him, and I had such a great time with him. It was so easy. And you know Reed.
He's done my show 3 times. Yeah, he's so easy to talk to. I love talking to Reed.
3 times? Damn it.
Well, because it's funny. I don't know what happened. I got him on my one friend. My friend who did the opening drumming is a drummer for Jason Aldean. And Rich started a podcast, and Rich wanted actors, and whatever, like, I'll say, someone will go, Reed, do you know Reed Diamond? I go, yeah, do you want him on your podcast? And I send Reed a message. You want to do it? He goes, Coop, if you say he's cool, I'll do it. So that's just, I've got to know, because he's so easy. He's such a nice guy.
So easy. And he's like built for podcasts. Yep. I would say I'm not quite, Reed is like, boom, he's a nail. So I interviewed him and I went, this is just amazing. Hey, how about if we do a rewatch podcast? And he like went, I'm in 150%. So he and I have been putting together this rewatch podcast, and we're going to be dropping it in September, and it's been just a ball to go over the episodes, and we have guests that come on, basic format, but we have some other fun things that we do. We bring on younger people to talk about, how is it for your generation? Because a lot of kids, that's how they found Homicide, at 13 or 14 years old, watching it on Friday nights with their parents, a cop show. And so now they're getting a hold of me in their 40s or whatever and going, hey. And I went, you know what? That's what we need. We need younger people connecting with their parents rather than watching Blue's Clues. Take those kids out of those.
Well, and I think also it also goes back to our opening when we talk about the phones. Like, my buddy turned his kids on to Seinfeld, and they know that I love Seinfeld, but if there were cell phones, none of the episodes would have happened. Oh, Jerry, I'm at the movie. Okay, I'll come see you. But
exactly.
But the thing is, his kids, though, they understand it's retro, and that's what's cool. I think shows, and that's what's. And as you said, the camera. At the time, it was innovative, your camera work. And I'll be honest, the opening credits is just awesome. I mean, that opening drag is just, you sit there, and I can skip that on my Peacock, but I don't. I watch the opening credit because it's just, I love that kind of stuff. But
the dog.
Yeah, it's just, and the kids see that now, and they relate to it because they grew up watching those kind of cuts. You know what I mean? So that kind of filming. So when they're 35, they don't know that Homicide pretty much originated that kind of thing. But it must be cool for you to talk to young people. What are some of the young people's input to you about the show when you talk to younger people?
Well, for them, it's, because they grow up on really quick cuts, quick cutting, moving quickly, going from here to there, and for the most part, that takes a little ounce of time to sink into. And then because of the writing and because of the performances and because the camera work keeps them engaged enough because of its movement, they buy into it immediately. And they buy into the characters, they buy into the stories and also that, like my daughter would say, we want stories to be wrapped up, and you don't wrap them up. And that's a good thing. Apparently that's a good thing. That's not something that they are all the time looking for, so our show is perfect in that way.
Now, also on your website, KyleSecor.com.
Yes.
Tell me about Death of an Actor, Everything I Learned About Nothing. I did not know you wrote a book.
I did.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Okay. So, I wrote this coming out of the pandemic, and in a way, it was just a distillation at the time of what I thought about acting and creating. And what was it, these crazy things? Why, have you ever found yourself, you've done stand-up and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever found yourself on stage and you've got your, the jokes you're going to tell, whatever, but there's like have an existential moment of what am I doing here?
That's why I got out of stand up the first time. I remember I was doing a show, and this was in I was on the road for like 6 years, and I was in a show in Youngstown, Ohio, at a club called the Funny Farm, and I was sitting there doing my act, and I was going, "Why am I up here? This shit sucks." And I'm getting laughs, but I'm going, and that's one of the reasons why I got out of stand up originally.
Right. Yeah. I had I had a similar thing. It happened to me in Scotland. I was at the Edinburgh Festival, and I was doing Shawshank Redemption on stage. And there was a few performances, but I would remember coming out, and it was a bizarre feeling. The lines were coming out of me, and I was aware of the lines coming out. I was aware of the audience. I was aware of this body, and there was nothing to be said about that. It was just an odd, ethereal experience. Ethereal isn't even it. It's just out of body, And then I had some strange things that happened off stage. I couldn't put my finger on it. Just felt like I was completely lost, but I was okay. I was taken care of. There wasn't anything that was bad that was going to happen, or nothing was going to crack out of heaven or anything like that. And then I just started writing about that, and writing about it in a way of, hey, what would happen if I approached acting in this way? And what if the me who thinks that they're approaching the acting in that way isn't really the me that I think I am? So there you go, Steve. That's my book in a nutshell. You're not going to get anything out of it when you read it. And yet people buy it.
But well, that's the thing, especially when Homicide come out now, you're going to get more people going, hey, who's this? Oh, he's got a book. Let's get it.
Oh, gosh.
Now,
oh, dear.
Okay, so you go through this phase.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what makes you stay in the game? Because this has been your career. We're saying Homicide was 30 years ago, but you worked before that, so you are an actor. I mean, some people can say I'm an actor. It's like, no, you did a YouTube video. But this, I'm saying, how it is in Hollywood. But you are an actor. That's what you are. What happens when you go through something like that over there in Edinburgh, and do you easily go back into acting, or where is your mental state at that time?
Yeah. Well, as you know, after the pandemic, our industry was giving out jobs to everyone. And then we had the strike, and then more jobs were available. Steve, you remember this?
Oh, yeah, everyone. I remember. I'm not even an actor. I was getting calls. They wanted me to do...
People were knocking on your door.
Like, come do a guest spot on.
So there was already a thing of that was being shaved down. Those roles were kind of going away, and I just started feeling that I would love to act, but I'm kind of okay with whatever this is. I've got to find a way to make some money or do that, but what I'm doing right now with this podcast and writing on Substack is just an extension of that. It's an extension of doing something that brings me happiness, that brings me joy. And that by extension, doing that, I've gathered all of these people from my past and from the present that I didn't even know were available, and that are just coming around saying, what can we do together? What can we do together? And that wasn't my intention at all, but that's just what's happening. So I have no clue. It's just like saying, how did you make your career? And I go, no freaking clue how this thing is coming about, or where it's going to go.
Well, now I want to ask you this because, as I said, you went through, auditioning and getting roles, and then getting offers, and then getting auditions, and then the pandemic happened.
It was sweet. That's easy.
Yeah,
That's
everyone
nice.
Loves that. Yeah, but then the pandemic happens, and the strike happens, and now you got to do self-tapes. Now, you're a guy who's always been in the room, and I always like to ask actors, and most actors that I interview, all the same generation, most of them grew up in the room. They got parts because of the room. People said stories, I would have never got that part except in the room. So what is it like for you now? Do you enjoy a taped audition? Because I would think, my philosophy is, if you're someone who's used to the room, you go in and it's fight or flight. It's like when I go on stage, you got to hit it, But when you self-tape, I think you can get a little complacent. Like, if I screwed that one up, I can do another one. And I think me personally, I would get tuned inside my head and go, oh, I have to have this perfect. When you guys are in a room, it wasn't the perfectness that got you the gig. It was because the way you delivered it. So what do you like self-taping, or do you prefer the room?
Well, look, when I was initially would audition for the many years that I loved auditioning, it was the greatest thing possible. Showing up in a room and going, here's what I got, take it or leave it, was the greatest thing. A few years before the pandemic, I stopped enjoying going into rooms and auditioning. It was just, I found myself getting more stressful about it and things like that. So for me, doing self-tapes has been really great. That to me is really fun. I don't think it's that helpful. I think that I got a better percentage of jobs being in a room, but doing self-tapes for me is a really great thing. And also it's forced me to learn about, a little bit more about technology, about all of that stuff that people can complain about when they get to a certain age. Maybe, I have some actor friends who go, I don't want to do this because I have to keep doing it. And I go, I'm just learning how to do it. It's like doing a podcast. Like you had to learn how to do a podcast. I'm learning how to do it, like figuring it out. So I like figuring things out, and I'm sure I'm going to crack this self-tape thing at some point. Someone's going to start going, he's the best ever. Let's give him a job before he even gets on the air.
Exactly.
We know it's going to be good.
Now, the podcast with you and Reed, you're dropping it. And now let's say if that podcast takes off. Now, would you just sit there and concentrate on the podcast? Because I know there's no way in hell Reed Diamond's giving up acting. We know that. That's not even a thing. But would you sit there and actually just concentrate on that more, as you said, or do you feel like you'll be acting until you die?
No, I don't think I'd be acting until I die. But what I do think, and I wouldn't just do a Homicide podcast or just continue writing about that. I want to keep doing what I was doing before, which is just creating stories, and either by writing them or whatever, or performing them or directing them or whatever, that I like making shit up. And as much as I like the Homicide thing, it has a kind of a beginning and an end to it. We're going to be doing 122 episodes or more, depending if we have some extra episodes and stuff. So there's going to be a beginning and an end to that, and I'm fully down with doing that. But I've got a lot of other ideas. So
I want to ask you a personal.
But I don't know about and if there's acting that comes up, great. If they're fun roles, great.
I want to ask you a personal question about
Sure.
the cast, because I've through this podcast, I've lost so many past guests, and when I'm only on with them for an hour, I become close to them. I mean, just last week I lost Jack Russell from Great White and Greg Kinn, and over the years, the list goes on. And that's the only time I listen to my show is when a guest passes away. I'll have a glass of wine and I'll listen to the show. And you sit there, and some of them, like when Willie Garson passed, I was really bummed because I had him on twice on the show and he's so good. What is it?
You guys would be great together.
I bet you guys were. He was
great
wonderful,
together.
and we look alike. Yeah. Look, we look alike. I mean, come on. What is it like for you? Because I was looking last night as I watched that first season. 5 of the people from the first season are gone. Does that hurt you to talk about that when you see them on TV, or what? What are you? Or is it fond memories?
Yeah. Well. It's a few things. Andre hit pretty hard, I will say. That doesn't, and I don't think that puts him in another category other than that, because we were together as partners and as friends for a short, intense period of time, and it meant a lot to me. And being 62 and him passing away was just an awful thing for his family and his colleagues and all of that, and fans. But I can now watch him and enjoy watching him and really appreciate the stuff that he does in a very different way. When I watched that first episode, I hadn't seen that episode in 30 years. To see him the first time in the box, I was just going, what the hell did I miss? What did I miss? My God. I don't know if I saw it that way the first time around. I think I was either more, I was a little more competitive. I was a little more whatever. Now it's a completely different thing. But I'm good talking about it. I'm good talking about the good times we had and about him, kind of getting on me that first episode I directed, and yeah, it's a great fondness for he and for Amy and his kids, and for his work. And I started watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine for the first time this year. He just is amazing to me. And Richard was a really, really dear friend. I spent a lot of time with Richard, and then didn't see him again, for a few years after Homicide. So, but he meant a lot to me as well as and John Polito lived near us. He lived down in Studio City, so I would see him periodically through the years, and we developed a little relationship outside of Homicide. So.
Polito was on my show. Polito was so funny. He says to me, he was smoking cigarettes, and I said, Polito, you gotta quit. And he goes, Cooper, I was a gay man in New York in the '80s. Nothing's killing me. And that's Polito. That's exactly who Polito was.
Yeah. But until something did kill him.
Now, looking back at your career, what are you proud of? What makes you proud? Like when you sit there, what brings you pride in your career?
Well, I mean, it didn't used to. I didn't, until I was a few years out of it. But Homicide brings me a lot of pride, and I didn't recognize how good it was while I was there, and for years afterwards, and that brings a lot of pride. I think it's also meeting all the amazing. It's just an amazing industry. Meeting all the amazing writers, actors, the producers I've worked with, being able to mentor some people along the way and help some people along. Being sometimes being a teacher and seeing actors get better. I don't know if I'm proud, but that feels really, really good to me. But I like that I'm still here. I'm kind of proud that I'm still here.
You should be, because it's an industry that's changing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's scary to think. Like I talked to Catherine Mary Stewart. She's like, yeah, back in the day, if you were a guest star, you got paid good. Now it's like you get scale plus 10%. She's like, it's not what it used to be, and that really makes me sad because I remember I always said, if you're ever on Murder, She Wrote, Angela Lansbury made sure you got paid well. Like I remember actors looked out for actors, but now they can, but it's the actors and the directors aren't in charge. It's the studios, and I think it's sort of hurting the industry because it's just a lot of actors are going to stop acting because there's just not the work anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's true, and so I guess that's why I'm heartened when I hear stories of actors standing up for other actors and standing up for the the inequity in the wages and things like that, and going on the picket lines last year. Amazing stories came out of that, and amazing journeys that people went on where they stood up instead of backing down. And there's something about that which is great, And if our industry weeds out people that don't want to be here anymore, it's always been that way. It's always been that way. And now there's more opportunities than ever to go, hey, I want to be an actor, but I'm this, and acting is a part of that. And you can just do a bunch of shit. My daughter's a musician, but she's not only a musician, she does a lot of other different things around music, and she knows at a very young age that it's difficult to make it just doing one thing.
It's true
anymore.
So before we wrap up, since once again I said I just started watching the show, and now are you watching the whole series now? Or are you going to rewatch it? At some point, maybe I'm going to start bopping around and looking at stuff all over the place. But right now, I'm going one episode at a time. Do you like...
So I know everything up to the third episode. If you ask me anything after 3, it's going to be very, very shoddy.
Do you like watching yourself? How does you feel? Like, do you sit there and go, do you think you've gotten better as an actor? Or do you sit there and go, I was good? And you were good, so you can say I'm good. Like a lot of times, people they don't want to say they're good, but if you're good, you say you're good. I mean, when you watch yourself in episode 1, Bayliss walking in. What was your reaction when you first started watching it? Did you flash back to that time, or did you just enjoy it and really observe?
I watched it with my wife and my daughter, and they both said, "Oh, you're so young." That's the one thing, and. I thought it was pretty brilliant, and I thought I did a pretty good job. It's funny because as the second episode and third episode came along, I was more sitting back going, could have done that differently, Kyle. Another choice would have been nice. So I was being a little criticky about myself, but then also kind of going, okay, no, that's exactly what the show called for. That's exactly what was needed at that moment. And it's humbling to be so naive as a character. It feels humbling to be as sensitive as Bayliss was. For me as an older, actor now, it's like, wow, man, that's sensitive. Come on, tough it out, baby. But I think I'm maybe I'm a better. I have no clue. I have no clue if I'm a better actor now. I think I might be, but who knows?
No, so you don't remember past episode 3. But before we go,
I could probably find something.
Just give me some like one or two fun or funny behind the story scenes, not about Andre and potato chips. We already heard that one. But give me like something that happened because you guys were in Baltimore and and it wasn't like it was an extravagant set, as you said. Just give me one or two good stories about something that happened when you were shooting or off screen that, just was really cool.
Okay, the one that still kills me to this day is, we work really hard on that show and we don't have time for anything. And so if you bring on a guest star who's an attractive person that is like, there's this thing that happens, and that happened with Clark Johnson and I over one person, and so my way of approaching it was very different from Clark. My way of approaching it was, and neither of us, by the way, had any chance whatsoever. She wanted nothing to do with us. So my approach was to write poetry and to kind of put a poem in her script or something. And Clark just hung back. And one day we were out in this little garden area in the midst of where we were staying. And there were balconies looking down over this garden area. And I had just given her a poem and waiting to see what she thought about it. And she, all of a sudden, her eyes go up like this, and there is Clark walking on the edge of his balcony, on the edge of the balcony, going like this in deep concentration and focus, not realizing that he could die in about in 1 inch, and she goes, Clark, and he goes, what am I doing here? And I was done. I was done for. He had it was the killer move of all time. And of course, nothing ever happened with that either because she was off.
That's funny.
That was really funny. Clark Johnson is a funny man. Have you ever had a talk with him?
I haven't.
Oh, God almighty. But he did stuff like that all the time. He didn't have to do anything. He would just get out on a ledge, walk on a ledge. And he had it. I had to work too hard.
Yeah, well, this has been great. I'm so glad you came on. I reached out to you, and I'm really happy. Now your website is KyleSecor.net.
I think it's .net.
.net.
Yes.
And Substack, people, you can just Google Substack Kyle Secor and subscribe to it.
Yep.
And people, you can go to my website.
Yep. Oh, yes, please do subscribe.
Okay, I'm going to subscribe to it when I get off. Do I have to sign up for anything, like a Substack account? Do you know?
I think you just subscribe, and then you can do it for free, or there's tons of free people. There's some people that pay money, and but it's all free.
So people subscribe to it.
Some stuff is behind paywalls. About half of the material is behind paywalls.
Okay. So people go check it out. Also go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find 1,021 episodes on there. You can email me at cooper@coopertalk.net. Yeah, 1,021. I recorded my 1,000th episode was Mick Mars from Motley Crue. I interviewed him a few months ago. So people go to that, check it out. Also go to, if you go to YouTube, search The Coop Tank. That's my business podcast. I have the local business people. I run a panel of 4 people. We talk about business and motivation and stuff like that. Also starting next month is Coop's Comedy Corner. I'll be having top traveling comics, good friends of mine coming on, talking about the craft, stories, all that good stuff. Follow me on Twitter at Cooper Talk. Email me at cooper@coopertalk.net. Remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget, drink your water, take your vitamins, eat your vegetables, and I'll talk to you next time. Can I get